Hey guys, good morning. Welcome to Thursday, or good afternoon, good evening, depending on when you're watching this. And my name's Brian. I am producer, director, star of, writer, scripter, and everything for Mr. Smith's Kitchen. I do have an assistant, Chris, my wife. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Glad to have you. Glad you're here. If you're returning, I'm really glad you're here. That means I did something right somewhere down the road. So today, normally on Thursdays we bake. Occasionally we look at the garden or things like that, but we do that sporadically on each video. The cool thing about gardening is it's really fast paced in the beginning, and then after you get everything planted and it's growing, it really just comes down to keeping the water right, for your plants. So there's not a whole lot to look at, although we do have jalapenos that are starting to come aboard. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my glasses off so that way you can not see the reflection, because it's annoying me, and if it's annoying me, it's probably annoying you. So today we're going to make it's one of my favorite cakes in the entire world. Although I can honestly say I've never made one. So we're going to make it together. You'll find I do that a lot on this channel. I will find new recipes, whether it be our dinner recipes on Wednesdays or baking on Thursdays. And try them out. We gotta try them out together. Although it's a pineapple upside down cake, and I've had a million of them in my lifetime, just never made one. It does have a lot of little moving parts that combine into 3 different parts that we will put together in one pan and bake it. So, that being said, I'm gonna do this a little differently. If you've watched some of my previous baking videos, and cooking videos, I kind of go over the entire ingredients list in one fell swoop in the beginning. I'm going to, since this is like a 3-part cake, because what we're going to do is we're going to make the topping, which is brown sugar and butter with the pineapples and the maraschino cherries. We're going to put that in first. That's stage 1. Stage 2 is making the batter, but stage 3 is part of stage 2, if this all makes sense. If not, you'll see as we go, because we're going to take the egg whites and we're going to whip them up into a nice firm, what they call firm peaks, which is kind of a stiff meringue, a borderline meringue, and combine that with the batter. So that's the 3 parts. We're doing stiff peak egg whites, we're doing a batter, and we're doing the topping, which is pineapple, brown sugar, and butter. So, first things you need to do, okay, right off the bat. Before I forget, don't forget to subscribe. I almost feel weird saying that, but don't forget to subscribe. And if you'd like, it'd be awesome if you'd hit that like button. I know nobody ever wants to seem to do it, and that's okay. That's not the mission or the purpose of my channel, so that's fine. But it would be cool if you did. At least lets me know you're out there, and don't forget to comment. All right, very first thing you need to do, because you're going to need 2 large eggs, okay? And you're going to separate them. And you're saying, what is separating? I'll tell you, because it's really kind of cool. What we did is we put our yolks in one bowl and our whites in another bowl. All right, you can do that one of 2 ways. You can either take the eggshell, crack it in half, and sit there and pour the yolk back and forth in the shell while the egg white pours into a bowl. Or we have a fancy, I'll show you. Well, by fancy, I mean it probably costs like $2. Egg yolk separator. And you crack your egg, you pour it in here, the yolk stays in the center right there, and all the whites come off the side. So, you want to do that first, because you want your eggs at room temperature. It serves 2 purposes. A, it makes the yolks easier to beat up and mix in. And if you're going to make a whip out of the egg whites, with stiff peaks, your egg white has to be warm. It can't be cold. So, or it'll never fluff up. So you want that to happen. All right, so we got that done already. That's the very first thing. Next thing we're going to do is turn our oven on. We want it on at 350 degrees. I just turned it on. Now we are ready to go for our next step. And our next step is to make that the topping. All right, the brown sugar butter. you will need a saucepan of some kind, or it's something that you can heat this up with. These, a friend of mine gave me an entire Corningware set of the amber colored glass pots and pans, and so I thought, hey, let's put them to use. This is a perfect opportunity. So you're going to need one of those. Other things you'll need, you will need a 9-inch cake pan. You will also need a couple spatulas. At minimum, 2 bowls and a hand mixer. All right, well, at least 2 to 3 bowls and a hand mixer. I'm going to use a stand mixer today and my hand mixer. If you are using a stand mixer, you want your paddle attachment, and you could also use your whisk attachment on this if you got it. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But you'll use the paddle attachment to start with to make your batter. At any rate, all right. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to bring you down to stovetop level, and we're going to look at the brown sugar and the butter. So let me get you turned, and we'll go down. Oh, all right, there we are, in all our fame and glory. All right, so you need a pot or of some sort, a small saucepan. I could have probably even used the one I had the butter in, but that's all right. So you're going to need, to make the topping, you're going to need 4 tablespoons of butter, which there you are right there. Let me turn this light. And if you're also new to my channel, you'll know I'm not professional. I do this on the fly. Like I said, I have a video that tells you what the purpose of my channel is. And we're growing, right? We're learning. So we're going to go ahead and turn our range on, our stovetop on. We're going to put our 4 tablespoons of butter in there. And that's 113 grams in case you're curious, or a half a stick of butter. And then we're going to need 3/4 cup of brown sugar, light brown sugar. I suppose you could use dark brown sugar too, but the recipe calls for a light brown sugar. And that is 150 grams. Let me double check. Yep, 150 grams. I always write, when I do a new recipe, I always write it down in my notebook. And if we like it and it works, I will put it on a card and add it to the recipe box. So we're going to put that in there. And what we're going to do is we're going to let this cook down until till the butter's melted and the brown sugar's kind of melting and it starts to bubble around the edges. Once it starts to bubble around the edges, then we'll take it off and we're going to pour it in our pan. While we're waiting on that to start, grab you a 9-inch pie pan. Even if you're using a non-stick, just because this is an upside down cake, and we're going to flip it over at the end, I would at least spray it with a cooking spray. I did mine with melted butter. All I did was melt it in a small container here, and then let it cool a little bit. That way it sticks, and that gives you a barrier between your cake and your pan. So when we go to flip it over, hopefully, if we did it right, it'll all come out. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and get this to a bubbling point around the edges. And when we come back, I will show you what it looks like, and we'll move on to the next step. All right, see you here in just 1/2 a millisecond. Okay, see how we're starting to bubble? I don't know if you can see it or not here. Let me try to bring it a little closer. But see how we're bubbling? It didn't start bubbling around the edges. Instead, it just started bubbling all the way around. Excuse me. So that's how we know that we're in good shape. So what we're going to want to do is go ahead and turn it off. We're going to want to get it off the heat. And then we're going to want to take our pan. Oh, there's our oven. We're going to want to take our 9-inch pan that we just buttered or oiled, and we're going to put this on here. All right, get all that ooey gooey sweetness out of there. Set that to the side. And then you want to spread it out and get it as even as you possibly can. Give it a little shimmy and a shake. And then we got it even. Okay, let me go ahead and get my camera moved. and we'll go over the next couple of ingredients and the next step. All right, hold on for me 1 second. All right, we're back over to the countertop now. All right, so we've poured our brown sugar butter mix into our pan. The next thing you're going to need in the ingredients list is 1 20-ounce can of pineapples, which is just your standard can of pineapple slices. Dole's the most common, but if there's another brand you prefer, or if there's even another brand out there, I've never seen anything but Dole, use your favorite. Remember, you want to use what you like. So you're going to need those sliced, and what you're going to want to do with them is take them out of the can, pour the juice off the can, but save some of the juice. About 1/8 of a cup, right around there, or however much you want. And you're going to put them on a paper towel, and you're going to dry them off. All right, you don't want these sopping wet. It can affect your cake batter in the long run. Dry them off and set them down. It takes about 8 rings. So what we're going to do is, we're going to place these rings in here. So that way we have, plenty of pineapple. It wouldn't be an pineapple upside down cake without pineapple, right? So we get these in here and try to put as many as you can. It may not take 8. It may only take 7. Like in this case, I think it's only going to take 7, which is okay. It's no big deal. The next thing you'll want to do on your ingredients list, that just gives you one more you can eat. There's like 10 slices in a can, and whatever you don't put on your pie, you can eat while your pie is baking, or your cake is baking. All right, so the next thing we're going to need, maraschino cherries, the candy cherries of the gods. And these are optional. You don't have to put them on there, but I think it gives it a classic look. This cake, when I eat it, it reminds me of my great aunt Norma. It's colorful, it's got a lot of class, and it just says you're going to have a good time. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the cherries in between the pineapples, in the little hole of the pineapple, and then I'm going to stick them basically in all the open spaces. That way we got it going good. And as predicted, I'm 1 shot. So give me 1 second. I will be right back. And you get a whole jar of maraschino cherries, which is awesome. But say you don't use them all, it's okay. These go great with ice cream. Maraschino cherries go good with everything. They're just super good, sweet, not very healthy for you candies. All right, so got that done. Bring it up to you so you can see it. There's our cake top. We've got that brown sugar butter on the bottom. We've got the pineapple on top of that. We've got the maraschino cherries on that. So now we can just set this aside for a moment. All right. Next things we are going to need. All right. Our next step is going to be to make the main part of the batter. All right. The wet and dry of the batter. So things we will need. We're going to start with the wet. All right. It's like I said, this is an easy cake. It's just got a lot of stuff that goes into it. So we will need the following: 1/2 cup of butter, 1 stick of butter, 1 teaspoon of vanilla. I don't know if you can see it, 4 grams. Okay. Let me this plate out of the way. You will need your 2 eggs, the yolks. You want those at room temperature. And you will need, I don't remember the sugar. Yeah. 1 cup, 200 grams of granulated sugar. And that's just regular, put it in your coffee, roll your strawberries in it, sugar. Nothing fancy. You can find it in your baking aisle. It's usually on a giant pallet with like 800 different ones. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to take the butter, we're going to take the half a cup of butter, or the stick of butter, or I suppose you could also say your 226 grams of butter. and put it in the bowl, or in your mixing bowl. We're going to add our 1 cup of sugar. And then what we're going to do is we're going to mix this until the butter is creamed and the sugar is incorporated, and it should be nice and light and fluffy. I mean, really, I'll show you when we get done. So, and we're just going to mix this probably for a couple minutes at least. You know, make sure, I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, but make sure your butter is at room temperature, okay? Or it will never cream. All right, well, let me get this blended up. I'll show you what it looks like when I come back, and we'll add the eggs and the vanilla. Be right back. Okay, so we've let this beat for about, I don't know, maybe a minute or so, not even quite. And what, remember I said you want it to be light and fluffy. So, and I'm going to show it to you here real quick. But what you're looking for is essentially mashed potatoes. It's kind of what it looks like. We got, you know, a nice mashed potato consistency. It no longer looks like a stick of butter and a cup of sugar. It kind of looks like mashed potatoes. So we're going to scrape down our bowl. You know, and now don't be afraid to stop your mixer and scrape down your bowl. Things will go up on the sides. Things will get caught in the very center for whatever reason, where the mixer doesn't always hit it. Now, if you're using a hand mixer, you can get the center and the sides, but scrape down your bowl. It's not a big deal. It won't hurt nothing. So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to add our egg yolks. Maybe. This is what happens when you let them sit too long uncovered. They want to form a skin on the top. And we're going to add our 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And then we're going to mix that together. Just get it incorporated, looking nice. Now this batter, you will find it is a thick batter, a very thick batter. So don't, you know, be disconcerted or freaking out if it doesn't, if it seems too thick. It's gonna be thick. That's kind of the way it is. All right, so we got that mixed together. Now we need to work on our dry ingredients, okay? So the dry ingredients are really very simple. You are going to need, let me get my notebook here real quick. So I can tell you the grams. On a good note, if you have been following me, I have gone to the doctor and they've contributed most of my memory loss to a small chemical imbalance in my brain, which I now have to go back and see another doctor so they can tell me what I need to take to adjust that chemical balance. But we'll talk more about that on Tuesday. I actually have a really cool lineup for Tuesday. We're going to talk about a lot of medical stuff. We're going to talk about things that are going on with me, and we're going to talk a little bit about insurance companies. But anyhow, right now we're focusing on an amazing pineapple upside down cake. All right, so your dry ingredients are as follows: 1.5 cups, 195 grams of flour. Right there we are. Followed by 2 teaspoons, 8 grams of baking powder. And what baking powder does, if you don't know, is it helps give your cake or cookies or whatever a little lift. Makes them poof up. Yeah, and then we need a 1/4 teaspoon, 1 gram of salt. Now, with salt, we use kosher salt. I crush my kosher salt up because it's big flakes. You can use table salt. That's not a big deal. I just think kosher salt works better. So if you're using kosher salt, take a spoon or something and smash it up. Because if not, inevitably, and this happens to me all the time even though I crush it, you'll end up with a flake of salt that doesn't incorporate right. And inevitably, Chris gets the piece that has that piece of salt in it and she tastes salt. All right, so all we have to do for these is put our salt in, put our baking powder in, set those to the side, and remember you didn't get out a whisk. And you want to mix these together. Now, I mean, if you don't have a whisk, that's okay. But you want to incorporate and get these mixed together. You can use a fork to do this. If you own a sifter, you can use a sifter. If you don't know what a sifter is, I can show you real quick. I have one. A sifter is this, and what it does is it has a screen in the bottom there with this wheel. You turn this handle, and unbend it. We've had this thing forever. And what it does is it sifts the flour through that screen, because what happens is flour, especially powdered sugar, things like that, they have a tendency to get little clumps, and it will actually mix this up way better than even a whisk will. So you want to get that mixed up. If you don't get it whisked together and you've got little clumps of baking powder in there, somebody's going to get a bite that's going to taste bitter. You know, it won't be very sweet at all. So we don't want that. All right, so we got that mixed up. Next thing we're going to do is, what we're going to do is, here's the next ingredient. You need a half a cup of milk, okay? It can be, we use whole milk, you can use 2% milk, but here's what we did. Remember I said earlier you want to save about 1/8 of a cup of the pineapple juice? So what I did was I put 1/8 of a cup of pineapple juice in there, and then I filled it up the rest of the way with milk. What that does is it actually gives the cake itself that pineapple flavor, which is awesome. All right, so here's what we got to do next. Bring in a little closer here. So what we're going to do next is we're going to incorporate the dry into the wet into our bowl, but we're going to do it in 3 parts. So I'm going to pour 1/3 of the dry in there, and then I'm going to add half my milk, and then I'll put another 1/3 of the dry in, then I'll put the rest of my milk in, and then I'll put the remaining dry in. So let's go ahead and get that started. So we get 1/3 in there. All right, 1/3. Now, when you're putting your dry in to your mixer, or if you're even using a hand mixer, you want to start out on the lowest speed possible. If you don't, you will get a face full of flour. Flour is light, and you start mixing it around, it poofs up. So we'll get that incorporated a little bit. All right, we got that incorporated. Now we're going to add half our milk, half-ish of the milk. I mean, it doesn't have to be exact, but about half. You know, and in this case, we're going to add milk and pineapple, and then we're going to mix that in until it gets nice and, you know, incorporated. You'll see the batter it'll relax a little bit, and then after that, we'll add our other 1/3 of flour. Lift that bad boy up so I don't get it all over we want it in the mixer, not on the mixer, right? And that's kind of the gig. Yeah, get that in there, mix that up. So I was watching Rachel Ray the other day, and they had a girl on there that was on there 10 years prior at the age of 12 who had started baking, and her old-time hero was the cake boss, Buddy. I can't think of his last name at the moment. And yeah, she got to meet him and was very excited. But then during the pandemic, she, was still baking, and now she's 22 and in school. And she started this Facebook group called Quarantine Kitchen. I'm going to add the other half of my milk in here, and we're going to get it mixed. And what she thought might be maybe 100 people joining this group, you know, close friends, things like that, family members, turned out to be 42,000 members to this Facebook group. And in the process, she decided to do a cookbook where all the proceeds went to a firefighters foundation, and she asked members of her group to submit recipes to put in the book. They wrote the book, themselves, her and her sister, and and all the proceeds, like I said, they made no money off this cookbook. Went to a firefighters foundation, which to help get them equipment, take care of families, things like that. And Rachel Ray was talking about it. This girl is 22 years old, and because she has a love for baking, in her case, she is able to help so many people out. The name of the cookbook is Quarantine Kitchen, and it's, like I said, it's all recipes that were submitted by some of the 42,000 members of their group, and all the donations do go to help firefighters. Matter of fact, Rachel Ray is going to talk about it on her big public cook-along she's getting ready to do. All right, so we added, I recommend you check out the cookbook at any rate, and help support them. That's a noble cause. That just goes to show young people are still, trying to do it right. All right, so we added our last bit of flour in there, and we're going to let this run for a second to make sure we're good and incorporated. What you're looking for is light and fluffy. I guess for a lack of a better term, we want it to have a nice bright color. I'll show you here in just 1 second. And it should have the consistency of a loose mashed potato. But I'll show you. So we got that incorporated. All right, let me get my, another spatula, because I just threw that one back in the sink again. I never quite claimed to be the brightest all the time. So we'll get this off of here. Luckily, I personally think I'm just amazing looking, and that makes up for the fact that my brain doesn't always function properly. All right, so we got most of that off of there. And I bet we can just take the thing off, because we're actually pretty much done with this mixer. Well, we'll show you what this looks like right quick, because I want you to see, I want you to know. Put that in there. Give it a good blend. Remember, never be afraid to, stop and make sure everything's mixed okay. But right there's what we're looking at. There we go. It's got a nice mashed potato feel to it. But it is a thick batter. I mean, that it is. What will loosen it up is the next step, and we're gonna turn our egg whites into like a meringue. We're gonna mix them, whip them up, and turn them into stiff peaks. So let me get everything kind of situated and cleaned up, and we'll look at how to turn those into stiff peaks, and then after we make those, we're going to fold them in here, and we're almost there. Back in 1 millisecond. Okay, got things cleaned up and situated, so now we're down to the last step of the 3 parts. All we need to do is whip these egg whites into stiff peaks, okay? I'll show you how to do that. We're going to take our 2 egg whites, that we separated from our yolks earlier, pour them in a bowl, and then you will also need 1/4 teaspoon of cream of tartar. All right, now if you don't, cream of tartar, if you don't have any, it's okay. You can use a 1/4 teaspoon of lemon juice also. Some places this is actually kind of hard to find, I guess. We have an abundance here. As a matter of fact, we have it enough that I actually keep it on the shelf. But what this stuff does is you can overbeat your egg whites, and ruin them. This or the lemon juice helped keep you from overbeating them. It won't allow that to happen. I don't know what the science is behind it. I just know it works. So all we gotta do is dump that in there. And then you're gonna take, I'm using my hand mixer. You could also use a stand mixer. Remember I was talking about earlier that sounded really confusing about how you could use your whisk attachment on your hand stand mixer. I could have transferred my batter into this bowl, used my whisk attachment on my stand mixer, and done it in that also, and just done it. If you don't have a hand mixer but you got a stand mixer, that could be a way to go. You can also use this hand mixer to do everything we've already done. You know, you don't necessarily need the stand mixer. You can use this hand mixer here, which honestly, these are a lot cheaper than a stand mixer. Stand mixer is an investment. So what we're going to do is we're going to start beating this. And you want to start it off on lowish. And they're going to go from a gelatinous state to a nice poofy, like a meringue, like you would see on a banana cream pie. In almost no time at all. Alright, well, I'm going to go ahead and get these mixed, and when I come back, I'll show you what they look like. Alright, so that literally took 1 minute. And here's what we're looking for. I don't know if you can see it in the bowl or not. But see how it doesn't move? It's stiff. If you put it in the bowl, which the lighting's horrible, you should come up to a peak. See that peak right there? And see how it's standing up? That's a stiff peak. You know, you can also have soft peaks, medium peaks. It just depends on what the recipe's calling for. So, last step in the process. We don't need a mixer for this. We're going to incorporate your whipped egg whites into the batter. So, you're going to start off by taking just a little bit of it, you know, about a third of it, and you're going to fold it in. Now, by folding, you're literally, you know, let me bring the camera down so I can get you good, because this is important. Folding's important, you know, and you can do this with any cake. You can separate your eggs and fold in the whites. What it does is it makes it fluffier, but you're literally going to just fold, and you're going to do that until your egg whites aren't visible anymore. That means they've been mixed in. What happens is the egg whites give it a little fluffier, moister, you know, airier, is airier a word? Feel to it and taste. But if you sit there, if you beat it in with a mixer, you're defeating the purpose, because it takes all that air out. So then we'll add another bit, and we're going to fold this in. And we want to fold it, like I said, you want to fold it in. And what it's essentially doing, you put that first round in there to kind of loosen up the batter. Remember how it was firm, like a, you know, mean mashed potato? This helps loosen it up, you know, so it's not as firm. So we get these whipped in real quick. Yeah, and I mean, it takes a second. It's not, you know, the easiest process in the world. It's not throwing it in a blender and mixing it up, but it's well worth it. At the same time, if you were to use, even if you were to use your blender to do this, and you were able to, let's say you were mixing it on low, it went great, nothing collapsed, you run the risk of over mixing your cake batter. And it took me a long time to figure out exactly what the difference is with you get this last little bit out of here. If you overmix your cake batter, it won't look a whole lot different, you know, but it makes the batter tough. So when you bake it and you cut into it and you go to eat it, it won't be as tender and delicious. It won't have fluffiness. It becomes more dense, more like a pound cake than an actual cake. And you don't want that. Alright, so here we are. See how now it's fallen off the spatula? Yeah, that it loosened it up. So it's still a pretty dense cake batter. Get that off of there. So we're down to one step left before baking. And this is really, you know, like the end-all beat-all. I have to find my offset spatula. We're going to take this batter and we're just going to put it in the pie pan. Easy peasy. That's just the way it is. And then after we get our batter in here, that's a lot of batter. So, and not that I'm telling you to do this, because yeah, eggs have salmonella in them, and you can and they can make you sick. But I personally like to taste the batter. Ooh, that's really good. Now, I have to, I'm sure, legally tell you so I don't get sued down the road. Don't eat the cake batter; it's got raw egg in it. At the same time, I have been around for 50 years. I've eaten more than my fair share of cake batter, and it's never made me sick. But that doesn't mean it won't make you sick, so be careful. So we got the batter in there. Plus, by tasting it, I can make sure it tastes okay. There'd be nothing worse than making a cake and you go to serve it to your friends or your family, and it tastes like crap, basically. So I always just try a little on my finger. That way we know we're there. But like I said, I have to tell you, it will, it does, raw eggs they can be bad for you. Yeah, you'll see guys that'll drink raw eggs for breakfast, which I personally find that a little rough, and I love eggs. All right, so we got that in. We're going to go there. So let's talk about the oven, because that's all we got left to do is put it in the oven. Oh, I know someday I'll hire a cameraman and all that other good stuff, or have multiple angles with different cameras, and it'll be really cool. But until that time comes, So let's talk our oven. We're looking at 350 degrees, which we should already been preheating. Remember I told you in the beginning. Preheat your oven. First two steps: separate your eggs, preheat your oven, and then get all this stuff together. Now, if you noticed earlier when I was putting the eggs in, they struggled a little. Some of it struggled a little to get out of the container. To stop that from happening, and I didn't do it, I should have, is you put saran wrap over your eggs as you're bringing them up to room temperature, and don't take it off till you go to use them. That's where I went wrong. I took it off too soon, because what happens is that egg yolk gets a skim coat over it. Won't hurt anything, but it makes it a little rough to get them in. Excuse me. So, we've set our oven at 350 degrees. It's ready to go. We heard it beep earlier. We are going to put this in the oven, center rackish, for 35 to 45 minutes. All right? Now, I say 35 to 45 minutes because your oven isn't like my oven isn't like your oven. Nobody's ovens are the same. Even if they were built on the same assembly line in the same hour, they're going to be a little different. So start checking it at about 30-35 minutes, and then if it needs a little longer, you can let it go a minute at a time, literally a minute, because in a minute, a lot can happen to a cake. Much like cookies. A minute too long, you've literally got a dry cake. How do you check it, you ask? Well, that's a good question. I happen to have an answer. There are a couple different ways to check it. You can, it will be golden brown on top, okay? That's the first sign. The second sign is, if you take a toothpick and stick it in there, it should come out clean. Now, that one being said, do not stick it all the way in, or you'll end up getting the brown sugar butter topping on it and the pineapple, and it'll come out, and you'll be like, oh, that's not done yet, because it'll collect cake on the way up. So put it in about 90%. So remember, the bottom portion of your cake, about finger's depth, is pineapple and ooey gooey sweetness. Third way, pull it out of the oven and just tap it real lightly. You just take your finger and tap it real lightly. It should be spongy. It should bounce right back. It should be a whole lot. And there should be no jiggle in it at all. All right, let me get this in the oven. I'm going to bake it for 35 minutes to start with, and then I'll start checking it, only because I know my oven compared to the recipe's times. And When it's done, I'll pull it out and we'll come back and talk for a moment. I'll see you here in just 1 minute. Okay, so we went ahead. I ended up baking it for 45 minutes. Now I know, so I'm going to write it down on the paper. Like I said, I've not made one of these before, but me and Chris were talking while this was baking. And I'll show you here in a second. But I think next time, I have a cast iron baking pan, basically. It's labeled as a bread pan, but you could easily do a pie or a cake in it. I'll show it to you real quick. Hold on. I guess if I'd have thought I would have grabbed it before I came back, but I didn't. So the next time we make one of these, because these were traditionally, these pies came about, or these cakes came about in the 1920s. And before, so they didn't have the, quite a range of cake pans that we have today, but they did have cast iron, and that's what these were originally made of. This is a cast iron pan. Like I said, I want to say originally it was sold as a bread pan to make a bread out of, but you could easily use this to do a pie in, to do cakes, if you're doing a single layer cake, and I think we're going to try that the next go around. If we do, hands down, I'll video it and we'll look at how it turns out. And I promise I'll make the actual cake baking process a little quicker, because I'm sure there's not a whole lot of difference on the mix. But that being said, we got it out of the oven. Here, let me bring the camera down. So the next thing we want to do is let it sit for about 10 minutes. Okay, I mean, we don't want it to completely cool in the pan, but remember I did the toothpick test. That's kind of my tried and true. So to do the toothpick test, all you gotta do is just stick it in there. Like I said, you don't want to go all the way down to the bottom because that's where the gooey stuff is. But see, there's nothing on the toothpick. Another way to check it, see how it's got that nice golden brown look to it? But you want to, if I push on it, it comes right back up. That means it's nice and spongy. It's done its job. That means at least our batter's right. So we're going to let that sit for, like I said, for 10 minutes. And when I come back here in just a millisecond for you, we will take it out. And that's always, in my mind, I think would be the scariest part, is taking it out of the pan, because remember, you've got all that pineapple, brown sugar, and butter on the bottom, so it may stick. I don't know. We'll find out. Hopefully it doesn't. Now, I have been informed that it's, on occasion, especially the center pineapple ring, does like to stay in the pan. And if it does, we'll just take a spatula, scrape it out, and put it on back on the pie or a cake, and nobody will know. So, anyhow, I'm going to let that sit for a second, and when I come back, we'll take it out of this pan and see how it turned out. All right, see you here in just 1 second. All right, so we let that cool for about 10 minutes. Might have been a minute or two longer, I'm not sure. So the next thing we want to do, here's the moment of truth. Here's when we find out fame and fortune, or we figure out what went wrong. Which is okay either way, because everybody makes mistakes, right? That's the beauty of it. You got two ways you can do this. If you have a round circular cooling rack, you can put it on top of it, just like I'm going to do this plate, and flip it over. Or you can just go ahead and put it on your serving plate. We're just going to go ahead and put it on the serving plate because I don't have a round circular rack. Or, I could have put it on this. If you do put it on a rack, though, butter or just use your vegetable spray and spray it on there first. All right, so let's see how she turns out. Oh, look at that. We did have one stick. That's all right, though, because look, I'll show you how to fix that. See her? She's in the pan, and it wasn't the center one. So all we're going to do is, I need a bigger spatula. All in all, though, that cake looks beautiful. As soon as I figure out what happened to it, there it is. We're going to take a metal spatula. We're going to get up underneath it. And we're just going to simply flip it back over on it. Look at that. Never know. Never know. Except for Chris will know now because I'm sure she can hear me talking. She's in the other room working. But there, my friends, is our delicious pie. Cake. Geez, oh Pete, I don't know why I want to keep calling it a pie. I guess 'cause I'm used to making pies. All right, so here's the final step. We're gonna let that cool for just a little while longer. All right, it doesn't have to be room temperature cool because you want to serve it warm. You know, you want it to be able to, but you want to let it finish cooling enough that your brown sugar mix kind of solidifies a little, and gets firm. But you want to serve it warm. Is what it comes down to. And you can put some whipped cream on it if you want. I'm not. I'm just going to eat it plain. That's the way I like it. I'm so excited the way that turned out. That looks absolutely gorgeous. So when I come back, we will try a piece. All right, but we got to let it cool for just a few minutes longer, maybe about another 5-10 minutes, and then we should be able to cut into it and see what happens. All right, hold on for me 1 second. Okay, guys, so I let it cool a little while longer, about 10-15 minutes. So, and like I said, you want to serve this kind of warm. And lesson I did learn through this process was when you put it in the oven, put it on a baking sheet or put a tray underneath of it of some sort. It did bubble on me, so so now I got some cleaning to do in the old oven. But that's neither here nor there. Lesson learned. Now I know. Let's go ahead. We're gonna cut this piece and see how she tastes. If it tastes as good as it looks, we should be in really good shape. So, what caused the bubble over? See that little spot right there? How it's not brown, it's kind of missing. That's where even though it looked like it was even on top, it created itself an air pocket and brought it through. So things to look for future reference. All right, so let's see what we can accomplish here. What kind of trouble we can get into. We're not going to cut us a big piece. I don't need a big piece, at least not right away. I can already tell you it's moist. It's funny the things you can see when you're cutting. I don't know if it shows up on camera or not, but I mean, look at that. I'll bring it in close for you so you can see it. So, and there is our moist, tender, delicious pineapple upside down cake. Now, all we gotta do is taste it and see if it tastes half as good as it looks. Get a fork out, not a spoon. Spoons, I mean, you can use a spoon, I suppose, but let's give her a shot here and see how she turned out. Dude, or do that. It's so moist. Yeah, this recipe is amazing. It is definitely going in the cookbook. I need one more bite. Oh, I'm telling you, and adding the pineapple juice in with the milk, you can taste the pineapple in the cake itself. On top of that glaze and the pineapple, and that is incredible. If you do not want to use canned pineapple, and you have you can get fresh pineapple, that's fine. It's a little different. I mean, unless you're cool enough to slice it into rings, you can just slice it into pieces and layer it onto the bottom of the cake. Also, add about 5 to 10 minutes onto the times. So, like I said, 35 to 45 minutes. But that being said, I think I'm going to go enjoy the rest of this piece of cake, and maybe even have another piece. It is that good. I highly recommend you try this. It's not horribly hard to make. It would be a good cake to make, for your family, for an event, a picnic. I may make one of these for the 4th of July. I don't know what cake. I know for sure we're doing a cherry pie for the 4th of July, but I may make one of these too. That is really good, and I guarantee it's not going to last to the end of the day at my house. It may not in your house either. If you do need to store it, you can store it out at room temperature. Put it or in your fridge, either way. Make sure you put it in a container if you're going to store it out. If you, like I said earlier, it is best served warm. And just cut you off a piece and put it in the microwave for about 15 seconds, and it'll warm it up just enough. You don't want to put it back in your oven. It'll start to crispen it, and you'll lose your moistness. But you can put it in the microwave by the slice. Like I said, 15-20 seconds. It's more than hot enough. You can put some whipped cream on it, or eat it plain like I'm doing. Because I'm telling you, you'll love this cake if you make it. But if you do make it, let me know. Leave a comment down below about it. Leave me a comment about the video. Leave me a comment about anything. Like I said at the beginning, don't forget to subscribe. You don't have to hit the like button if you don't want to. I'm not monetized, and I'm not doing this for money. Fame and fortune, maybe, down the road. But right now, I'm just doing this because it's fun. That's the important thing, is we're having fun. If you don't like it, let me know. Like, Brian, that upside down cake stunk. Just stop making cakes and pies, and I'm gonna tell you no. But I'll take it under advisement. Let me know. All right, I'm gonna go finish eating my cake. I love you. Tell somebody else you love them. It'll make their day a whole lot better, I promise. All right, talk to you later. Have a good day.